Alright, go.
The Tibetans revolted and surrounded the palace of the Dalai Lama in defiance of the Chinese occupying forces. This was triggered by fears of a plot to kidnap the Dalai Lama and take him to Beijing. When Chinese military officers invited him to visit the PLA headquarters for a theatrical performance and official tea, he was told he must come alone and that no Tibetan military bodyguards or personnel would be allowed past the edges of the military camp. 300,000 loyal Tibetans surrounded Nobulinka Palace, preventing the Dalai Lama from accepting the PLA's invitation. Little over a week later, fighting broke out, and the Tibetans rebels, severely outnumbered and outgunned, tens of thousands of people were slaughtered. The Dalai Lama was evacuated to India, and tens of thousands of Tibetans followed their leader there. In 1962, the clash over the unclear Indo-China border. There was a clash over the unclear Indo-China border. Neither side was ready for any type of full-scale war, with threats facing each from different sides. The skirmishes continued along the borders between small squadrons of men. Eventually, there was a larger clash over the lands of Tag Law. Afterwards, both sides agreed to settle the dispute diplomatically. However, on October 10th, Chinese opened fire on Indian troops and advanced on the Indian border. With India underprepared, the Chinese easily reached their border and claimed certain border lines and declared a ceasefire on November 19th. In 1964, Mao's Little Red Book was produced and distributed to everyone in China. The book explains that political power grows out of the barrel of a gun and how the bourgeoisie must be shut down immediately. Who was and was not bourgeoisie shifted as his enemy changed and he became a part of the ruling class.
(1966). Mao thought China's new economic policies weakened the communist goal of social equality, so he urged young people to learn revolution by making revolution. Millions of high school and college students responded by leaving their classrooms and forming militia units called Red Guards. The Red Guards led a major uprising called the Cultural Revolution. Its goal was to establish a society of peasants and workers in which all are equal. Intellectual and artistic people were considered useless and dangerous. To stamp out this threat, Red Guards shut down schools. Thousands were executed or imprisoned. Chaos threatened farm production and closed down factories. By 1968, even Mao admitted the Cultural Revolution had to stop. The army was ordered to put down the Red Guards. In 1971, Zhou invited an American table tennis team to tour China, which shocked the world because no one had been able to tour China since 1949. In 1976, Zhao and Mao die. Moderates led by Deng take control and started to modernize the economy. Deng introduced a set of goals known as the Four Modernizations. By the mid-1980s, Deng had introduced economic reforms in agriculture and industry, providing for more local management, and instituted the radical one-child-per-couple policy to control China's burgeoning population. In all these reforms, Deng insisted China remain a socialist nation with central control. Reforms improved the quality of life for all, but also created a huge inequality gap between the classes. 1978 to 1984. Deng eliminated Mao's communes, allowed for more individualism and capitalism for farmers. Food production was increased by 50%. Free enterprise is allowed for the first time since before Mao, allowing for a much greater industrial output. Deng created economic zones for foreign investment that contributed massively to the growth of the economy. In 1984, the collapse of the Soviet bloc provided new incentives for China to reform economically as it tried to avoid the same fate as Russia. Students in modernized China studied abroad and learned more about the West and democracy. In 1989, university students peacefully protested for democracy in Tiananmen Square. Military stepped in, crushed the protests, and killed hundreds in the process. University students were protesting an attempt to spark change in a deeply authoritarian government, and they wanted more economic and personal freedom for each individual. In 1990, the USA pressured China to free political prisoners. In 1995, Deng moved out of the limelight but remained leader. In 1997, Deng died and Secretary Jiang Zemin assumed presidency. They visited the USA and protesters demanded more democracy in China. On July 1st, Britain handed Hong Kong over to China. 2007. After freeing up economic system, China becomes the world's largest economy, has lifted 800 million people out of poverty, and even with the economic reform, there has been little social reform since the communists. The government is still very restrictive of individual rights.
Good job.